Hey everyone, so this is my talk. I'm just going to introduce myself and then talk a little bit about what I'm going to talk about. I am kind of winging this. I haven't got many notes or a presentation or anything like that, so I am just going to talk. Okay, so who I am Jeanette. I am a co-director of Reactive Dog UK alongside Nick Crampton, the wonderful Reactive Dog. I also am co-director of the Family Dog Club and the Puppy Training Academy, which I own with my husband Gavin Muldoon. So I just want to give a bit of a shout out to Nick and Reactive Dog. If you don't know about Reactive Dog, it's definitely worth checking it out. Nick has worked so hard and done so much to get where she has done in terms of Reactive Dog. It is an incredible resource with the most wonderful people inside. The admin team, the trainers, everything like that. It's such a good community of people. Sorry, you have to bear with me. Getting a bit hot. And yes, I am in my bed. So yeah, it's a great community, a really good community of lots of us. Nick has worked her absolute socks off to get it to where it is now. I honestly don't know. Hi Julie. I honestly don't know how she's done it. The work that she puts into that group, in terms of managing it, managing the people, managing the admin, the way admin work, the training she does, the apps, the content is incredible. There is just so much to it. So I just really wanted to get that out there because Nick really deserves a massive pat on the back for everything she's done. So, and I was really impressed by everything. Okay, so I'm going to talk tonight about puppies and how to raise a confident puppy. I'm not going to go into too much detail on raising a confident puppy. I'm just going to talk about the Puppy Training Academy, why we set it up, the reasons for, and then also just lots of things, I suppose, where I've been doing this for 10 years now. I just want to talk in general of things that I've seen and just what it can help you as both a trainer and as an owner, and lots of stuff that we do in our group and also as trainers, etc., that you can maybe give, you know, to your clients and stuff. So the Puppy Training Academy is an online training course that we recorded. We actually went and got professional camera people, so we've done it all properly. It's a 6-week course that we give to our clients. So basically what we've done is taken our training, our puppy training class, which we've run weekly for 10 years, and we've put it online. So we can do a further reach, but what it also does is it enables our clients to, so for example now, where we're doing Zoom puppy classes, we're doing the weekly Zoom, but they've also can go online at any point and see the video for what they want to teach their dog. So for example, loose lead, reflex to name, eye contact, the normal sit down stay, all of those sort of things we have in different videos. But the really important thing for me, and this is where I think it's slightly different, is alongside those training exercises, we also talk a lot and we give a lot of behaviour information, because to me it's very easy, and I'll talk a lot about this as well. The training side of having a puppy to me is the easy part. Actually understanding the puppy, understanding the behaviour, and understanding why at times they can do that and at other times they can't is the really important part, and it's where it can go wrong for clients as they get older, as the puppy grows up. Okay, so the initial reason for setting it up and online was before lockdown, so that it wasn't with that in mind, but we've been doing these classes now for 10 years, and every single time we run the classes, we always get the same questions. We always get asked about toilet training. We always get asked about puppy biting, and always about jumping up. They're the 3 main things that come up in every single class. Now, it didn't take long to realise that what also happens is very quickly our clients get overwhelmed, okay? And I'm talking within a day or 2 of having the puppy. So they bring home this new gorgeous little bundle. Now, we would all do exactly the same, okay? In our heads, when we're thinking about getting the puppy, we're going to be going over all the nice things that we're going to do with our puppy. So like to be able to cuddle and the cuteness, and we're looking at videos of cute puppies and all that. We all see all the nice fluffy side, but really quickly what happens is we become very overwhelmed. Okay, and within a couple of days, the overwhelm can get really on top of someone with a puppy. So what can happen is they bring puppy home. They've got something happens with puppies, so like they're biting hard, or maybe the toilet training or something like that. And then they go on and use a search engine. Now, this is where the overwhelm can make you feel even worse, because you put in toilet training in a search engine and you're going to get 3 or 4 different ways of training your puppy. And all of them are going to convince you, hi Amanda, that is the way to train your puppy. Okay, what can happen quickly is they can try one method, it doesn't necessarily work, and then they try another, so there's no consistency. But also, and this is what I'm going to talk about in more detail in a little while, is with toilet training, it's not always the training side of it that's the issue. We can really quickly ruin toilet training by doing things wrong in the first place, or by not understanding our puppies. And it's exactly the same with puppy biting. So you can read 3 or 4 different articles on puppy biting, and they may all tell you to do something different. For example, some will tell you to maybe make a noise, which isn't what I would recommend, so to yelp or something like that. Others will tell you to redirect to another toy. Others will tell you to tell your puppy off. Others will tell you to put puppy away, etc. Now, obviously, I don't do anything. It's force-free, reward-based, but if you can think about it from our owner's point of view, they have no idea. Okay, it's very easy for me as a trainer to know these things, but when you first have your puppy, you think, I'll be okay. Everyone else seems to be okay. I see all these pictures of these puppies, you know, being cuddled and everyone having a great time. Now, bear in mind, when do you get the camera out? Okay, you're going to get the camera out when your puppy's doing something cute or amazing. You're not going to video all the other times when the puppy's hanging off you or you're having problems. Same with children. We never get a camera out, really, if the child's having a tantrum. We're going to get our camera out when our children are being lovely and we're getting, you know, having really nice time with them and stuff. So we have to be really careful, because really quickly the overwhelm happens. Now, puppy blues, I call it, and I know a lot of other trainers do call it as well, does happen and happens quickly. So you have this new thing, okay, you've got a puppy, you can't put it in the cupboard and worry about it next week like other things that we can. Okay, we can get, you know, like you've got to do a tax return or something like that. You can go, okay, I've got 4 weeks, I'm not really in the mood for that this week, I'll do it next week. With a puppy, obviously you can't. So all of a sudden, you have this 24/7 stress in your life. Now, obviously, with new stress, we're going to have chemical changes in our body, and we're going to release cortisol. And it's not going to be long before our brain starts to go, hang on a second, there's something going on here. Maybe they need to worry more. So our brain is going to start overthinking, overanalyzing, and that. So when you've got that, so your brain's going into kind of overdrive, then you go on a search engine, and then by the time you come off, you're like, oh my God, I don't even know what to do. Then you've got your neighbour saying, you must do it this way. If you don't, you're making a rod for your own back. Along then, you have your neighbours, your friends, your family, all giving you lots of advice. Hi, Debbie. So what can happen really quickly is you just don't know what to do. So that's where the Puppy Training Academy comes in, because we take the people through each step. So they have behaviour videos that they watch before they start the training. Lots of different, even before they start training, we've got a video on toilet training. We've got a video on puppy biting, we've got a video on overtiredness, we've got a video on handling, we've got lots of different videos on all the stuff that I feel we as trainers should be really getting across to our clients in the first couple of weeks, because it's all good and well the training, but actually it's the other bits that are the important parts. With our dog Ruby, in all honesty, we just focused on keeping her feeling safe and secure, and we would just reward her for following us and doing a bit of recall in the first few weeks. Other than that, we didn't actually do much training. It was much more of making her habitual to lots of different environments and things like that. But obviously it's different because we've got more skills than your average owner, luckily. So yeah, so it came off the back of that. I really wanted to give some people somewhere where they knew that no matter what was happening with their puppy, they only have to come to us. So whenever they have a problem with their puppy, and this is kind of where the magic really happens, is they come into the group and they post what's going on with their puppy. And this is where it's very similar to reactive dog, because owners with reactive dogs can do exactly the same in Reactive Dog UK. So they go in and they tell us what the problem is they're having, and then myself and there's a few other trainers in the group as well. So whoever picks up that post will give them the advice that we need to. Now, there have been times in the group where, for example, I've had a few cases of resource guarding, and in that case, to me, I will do a live video in the group and explain about resource guarding, but also I also jump on into a Zoom with those people because I really want to kind of work out potentially what's going on. Because for me, resource guarding is information, and this I'll go into more detail in a bit as well about behaviour as information. So resource guarding, I'm not just going to give them a protocol. I want to go, okay, potentially something could be stressing your puppy out. They're trying to gain a little bit of control. Let's try and work out what we could change that actually could reduce the guarding, as well as doing a protocol as well. Okay, so it's double kind of whammy. And that's where they come in and then they get the advice that they need. But they know we're on hand to come in and ask that advice. They don't need to ring their neighbour. They don't need to ring a family member, and they don't need to use the search engine. And once they stop using the search engine, it's quite amazing how quickly they can feel much more relaxed, because they also know that they've got that support, that they have that hub they can go to, and in there they're going to get the advice, and it's going to be consistent because we're reward, you know, force-free, reward-based, and we've all studied with the IMDT, IMDTB, etc. So we're all given the same advice. So, and this is if you have clients and you're working with puppy clients and stuff, it's really good idea to have a resource where even if you just record, say 10 videos on just basic behaviour information. So explain to them, and I'll go through the different ones now, but explain to them toilet training, explain to them puppy biting, explain to them how their breed may be the reason that they're having certain issues compared to others. Explain to them how within a litter of puppies, they're all individual. So within a litter of puppies, I would socialise them differently and I would train them differently. I'm not, every single one is going to have a different personality and a different temperament. I'm not going to use the same, potentially, especially socialising. It's a really good example. You've got a litter of puppies, one or two of them may be more confident than the others. Now with the confident ones, I need to establish whether or not it is confidence. And again, I'll go into more detail because often it's insecurity and we mistake confidence and they're actually insecure. Compared to the ones that need to take a bit more time. Because if they need to take more time, then we really need to take socialising a bit slower. But again, that's something I will talk about. So I'm just going to go through the different things that we tend to teach and talk about and explain why I feel it's really important that we give the information to our customers about these different behaviours. So, for example, toilet training. Now, toilet training, you can go online and find out how to toilet train. You know, take your puppy out every half an hour, every time they've eaten, every time they've played, etc., and take them out. But what that doesn't do is explain to people how potentially there are a lot of other things involved. So, toilet training to me, I always explain to people, hi Anna, I always explain to people toilet training is easier in the spring and the summer. Okay, so if you are toilet training a puppy in the spring, in the summer, it can seem quite easy and stress-free because you're quite happy to go out there, stand out there, especially if the weather's nice, and just let your puppy do their thing. Okay, it can be like a slower process, have the door open, you don't mind hanging about. Pup can take a good 10 minutes to go to the toilet, no problem, because we're not getting cold, there hasn't been a huge temperature change, etc. It's not the same in the autumn and the winter. Puppy training a puppy is much more stressful for us, I feel, in the autumn and the winter because, one, we have to get geared up to go out, so we have to put things on, okay? Two, we're worried about them coming back in with wet paws, etc., so we got that to think about as well. Three, they may not like the change in temperature or the atmosphere, so as soon as they go out, it can become really quite aversive for them. And also for us as well, what you will do is you'll notice much more that they take quite a long time to go to the toilet. And it can take a good 5-10 minutes of sniffing before they'll actually go. So this is where we can say to our clients, if they're struggling with toilet training and it's like winter, autumn, to explain to them, please don't compare yourself to anyone else. Don't compare yourself to anything previously. It is a lot harder in this time. It's also harder for our puppies. Okay, it's a lot harder. My Ruby, we got her in September. She wasn't completely puppy trained until probably January when she could hold it. But she knew what to do. She would go near the back door, and then she would often, if you open the door, she was really, really hated the wind and the rain. So she might have an accident there, and that was fine. We were never going to tell her off. We knew she knew the motion, and we were doing it right. But it was the weather for her was so aversive, and even now as a staffy, she would much rather hold it than go when it's raining or windy. It's just that's her. Love her. Another thing as well is, what we can quickly do with toilet training is we can put our puppies off being handled. So I always explain to our clients, where possible, what you don't want to do with your puppy is be scooping them up and getting them out as soon as possible. So you see them start to circle in, and then you might frighten the life out of them by picking them up and taking them out. And then actually what can happen is next time they're less likely to want to come out or want you to be there when they go to the toilet, or they might start to have a problem with being handled. So I always, where possible, say to people, use food, encourage them out on their own. So I get them a piece of food and get them to come out on their own, and then reward them for being outside, and then leave them to do their business while I'm there, but I'm ignoring them. If they need my reassurance, I will always give it, but I'm not going to start, personally, I don't start going wee-wees, all that sort of thing. I just tend to want them to kind of do it themselves, if that makes sense. There's other things to consider. If a puppy goes to the toilet and a dog barks, next time they need the toilet, they may not want to go outside, so they could quite easily have an accident inside, because when they went to the toilet last time, it was scary. There are some puppies that don't want their scent outside because maybe you live in a built-up area and there could be potentially other dogs around. And for some puppies, it takes them time to build the confidence up to go to the toilet. So again, that isn't a training issue, it's a confidence thing. So this is, like I was saying, again, we've got to be careful because it's not always training. It is sometimes due to confidence, it's sometimes due to the weather. Puppies regress massively when the weather changes. I mean, in England, we had last week, we had nice weather, and that one day literally was nice weather, boom, the next day was really horrifically stormy. So in my puppy group, lots of the puppies that day regressed with their toilet training, but also it impacted their puppy biting as well, because there was something happened, something changed, it was a trigger for them. So this is where we as trainers, and if you're an owner and stuff, it's not always training. There's also a bigger picture to look at as well. So, and then the same thing with puppy biting. So I'm just going to have a bit of a drink. So puppy biting. Again, you can go online and read about puppy biting, but what you'll often do you will find the information of what to do when they're biting. So it might be, some people might recommend that you say ow. Some people will recommend that you redirect to another toy. Some people will recommend that you punish your dog, which I would never recommend, or say ow. So there's lots of different ways, and you can understand how our owners can read this and go, I don't actually know what to do. But are they missing a big part of puppy biting, which is often due to being overtired, overstimulated, stressed, worried. There's lots of other reasons why our puppies might bite hard. So I tend to break it down for people and say, first thing in the morning, they are gonna be quite bitey because of the arousal. So their arousal increases when they see us, okay? Lots of stuff going on chemically inside them, which obviously there's adrenaline there as well. So they've got this lots of energy that they want to, at that time, get rid of. So I always say to people, get up at least half an hour earlier if you can, and allow them to have a good play with something that they can bite onto. So that, not our skin, but obviously think about skin is very biteable. So you can go wrong by giving them things like a rope toy that they can't actually grab. That can get more frustrating than anything. I like dressing gown ties, tea towels, that sort of thing, for, you know, when they really want to have a good play. And then I always say it's not long with young puppies before they actually get overtired again. So what you want to do is have that kind of high arousal and then be bringing them down with potentially, I tend to do some training, and then I'd finish with a little bit of nose work. And then I tend to get into a bit of a routine. Now, I know lots of trainers don't agree with routines, and I completely see the rationale. I find for my puppy clients that having a routine really helps them and their puppy know where they're at. So I suggest to them a routine of, you give pup something to do while you go and get ready. If they're not okay with being left alone, you bring them with you wherever you are getting ready, and you give them something to do, like a Kong, a snaffle mat, or something like that, a licky mat, or something else to do at that point, or use recycling or something. And then it's very likely that they're probably going to need a sleep again soon. So every puppy's different. So the client themselves have to get to know their puppy themselves and work out what is a good routine for their pup. And bear in mind it changes as well. Like when you have a baby, you get about a month of a certain, they get into a routine, and then everything changes, and you've just got to keep changing with them. And then during the day with puppy biting, it's all good and well saying redirect, redirect, redirect. But actually what we can do is make it worse. So if a puppy, so say for example, they're starting to get a little bit tired, okay, and when puppies get tired, they go the opposite. And if you've got kids, you'll know this as well. When kids are tired, they go more wild. So often it looks like they've got lots of energy, but actually what's happening is they're starting to get tired. Now, if we keep at that point redirecting onto another toy, we're kind of bringing arousal back into that behaviour when they're actually getting tired, and we can actually make it a lot worse, especially if they're very toy driven. So I, at that point, will say to people, when they start to get bitey, as soon as they start to get like really bitey, if they won't redirect, that's when you do a little bit of training. And it's only got to be a few minutes of training with their food or some treats or something. Then finish with a bit of nose work just to bring that arousal down, and then settle them. Okay, so some dogs, I find, most puppies, when I'm working with them for the first few weeks, I'm going to grab a cuppa and I'm going to sit down and settle with them. I'm going to let them know now is settle time. So I grab a cuppa, we sit down. If they're in their crate, I'm going to reassure them. If they're in the pen, again, I'm there, I'm going to reassure them. Or if they're just in a bed, it's a similar thing, but I'm going to go and settle with them. I have known some puppies to only settle when the owner is out the room. So in those cases, we've covered up the crate and the owners remove themselves, and then puppy will sleep. So again, it is individual to every single puppy. But what we as trainers need to understand as well is sometimes we need to look at puppy biting as behaviour, as information. And this leads on to me, I always see behaviour as information rather than something I need to deal with, if that makes sense. So And it's the same, it's a really similar thing with kids. A really good example is if my daughter comes home from school and she's grumpy with my son, I'm not going to deal with her being grumpy with my son and try and punish her and that behaviour. I'm actually going to dig in deeper and find out why she's doing that, because something at school has upset her for her to be like that. And that's what the same thing with dogs. So I will often get a call on a Monday to say my puppy has become very aggressive. Now, I never fob people off with aggression and puppies. I know I have seen some posts on Facebook and stuff where people have been, I wouldn't say shut down, but it's puppy biting, it's normal puppy behaviour. Now, I wouldn't do that because I have seen really serious aggression in puppies, okay? But if they're saying to me it's on a Monday and this is the first time they've seen this behaviour, we'll often go through what's happened. 9 times out of 10, if I'm honest, it's due to the weekend. So often if you've got kids and they've been home for the weekend, very often the puppy is just by Monday absolutely shattered, and so Monday they can't settle themselves, they don't know what to do with themselves, and they're really bitey. And again, if you've got kids or you've had children, it's like a very tired, overtired, whingy child, and they kind of just need a couple of rest days. So this is where it's information. I always say to people, see it as information. Puppy biting out and about, again, to me, is information. Have they smelt something that's worried them? They started to get fizzy inside. So when the dogs start to get stressed, their arousal increases, and then it comes out normally somewhere. And it's often through they'll either spin on the lead, jumping up and biting on the lead, or they'll try and mouth us, or they might start to grab things. I see a lot of puppies will start to just tear like bits of grass up, or they'll look for something to chew, and at this point, to me, the puppy's just had it and needs to get out of that environment at that time. So this happens very, very quickly with socialising, which is, I'm not a huge fan of socialising puppies in parks and things like that, because it happens so quickly. And I'll talk about socialising in a minute and how I tend to do it. It doesn't mean it's right, it's just our way of doing it. But yeah, so puppy biting to me is information. Okay, there's something at that point they're either tired, overstimulated, or stressed, or worried them, etc. It could be a delayed reaction. So if they've been to the vets and then you've taken them somewhere else and they've seen other dogs, and then later on that day they're really bitey, again, that is information. What have we done today that perhaps has been a bit much for a puppy, or they've just had to cope or struggle with something. Okay, so and then during the day, puppy biting, always, they're often going to get tired. Then you have the witching hour in the evening where they turn evil, most puppies. And I always say to people in this hour, the best thing to do is to let them have their kind of crazy bit. If you've got children, keep them out of the way in their side. And if you're going to do any training, maybe have a gate, because they want to grab and bite. There's no thoughtful behaviour going on in that time. There's no point in training them, and there's no point in saying no, down, or asking them to do anything operant, because you can just reinforce it, if I'm honest. So at that point, I tend to say, right, just do a little bit of training, and then a little bit of nose work. I always encourage people to do nose work with their puppies. And when I say nose work, I mean just simply putting some food on the floor. Okay, so they use their new nose to find the food, because that brings their arousal down, and then settle them. Again, a lot of people think that if you keep the puppy up later, you'll get a better night's sleep. I personally, that's not the case. I find as soon as puppy needs to sleep, we should always get them and let them sleep. And then that often gives you, they often have a better night's sleep. My kids, if they go to bed earlier, they sleep in longer, strangely, because they obviously needed it occasionally. So that's where I'm at with puppy biting. And then training. So again, this is where we can teach puppy owners loose lead walking. We can teach them recall. We can teach them eye contact. And I always say to people, you must teach them in the most neutral environment first. So train, train, train. You can't do it enough in the neutral environment. And it can seem really boring. But that's where the training happens, and that's where they're doing a lot of their learning. Then we need to start increasing those environments. But this is really dependent on every single dog. A dog I've been working with over the last few weeks, we did a Zoom call the other day. They have a Labrador, beautiful Labrador, and for the last 3 years, I think, they've been desperately trying to get this dog to loose lead. They've done lots of different online stuff. They've followed lots of different methods, and they've seen a couple of other people, and we've gone through a lot of what's going on, and actually what is actually happening with this dog. So the dog pulls, okay, it pulls on the lead like mad, but what's happening is something in the environment is stressing the dog out. So the dog is pulling not because of a training issue, but because something is worrying that dog. The arousal of that dog increases as soon as he sees the lead. Okay, so we will be doing lots now. We're going to be doing we're going to have a vet check, because potentially he might have pain. It may be painful going for a walk, which is why he's pumped full of adrenaline when he goes for a walk. It could be that there are uncastrated males in his street that scent at the end of his road. I've had that before, where actually in the end a dog we were working with was chemically castrated, because we'd gone through everything, and I mean everything, pain, behavior, we'd done the whole lot, and in the end we were like, I felt that it was to do with hormones. So the dog was still intact, and actually what was happening is there was another intact male in the street who was scent marking, and this dog was becoming extremely anxious because of the other male. So when we'd done the chemical castration, after I think it was about a couple of weeks, this dog reverted back to being a completely happy, normal dog. That's not always the case. It is so individual to the dog, so you can't just assume, but it's something to think about as well, okay? So sometimes this is where we have to be careful. Loose lead walking isn't always a training issue. I see lots of Jack Russells being walked and they are at the end of the lead. And Jack Russells are often mistaken for being really confident. But actually, I can see they just want to get that walk over and done with. They're not enjoying that walk. So if you're a trainer and you're working with people with loose lead, it's not always a training issue. If they can loose lead in the home and they can loose lead in the garden, something happens to them the minute they're outside that's increasing their arousal. Now, it could be the arousal from just being outside. It could be other animals increase their arousal. It could be other dogs. It could be people. It could be a change in atmosphere. There's so many different things. It could be cars. There's so much to it that actually what we have to be careful of, like I say, is that we don't get too wrapped up in the training and just go, okay, this is how you loose lead. Actually, let's try and work out potentially why they are pulling on the lead in certain environments. My Ruby, we live in a really rural area, so she gets loads and loads of woodland type walks and fields and things like that. We don't do much road walking. My parents live in an estate, and if I take her there, her loose lead walking does go out the window. She will pull much more in that environment. Now I understand that in that environment, there's something that she's feeling a little bit stressed about. So I don't stress about it. It's not a training issue. It's more the fact that environment to her is unusual. So her arousal's increased, so therefore she's got more adrenaline and she kind of wants to get it over and done with. And we can do lots more with that, and we will do. But it's not necessarily a training issue. And if I was to train her with that, what I'd have to be very careful of is that I would only road walk her, say, once every few days. So I give her a break in between. I'm not going to all of a sudden road walk her every single day, because she finds that environment stressful. Now, if you have herding breeds, often for herding breeds, the movement of anything can be quite stressful for them. So if we're walking a puppy where there's potentially scooters, bikes, people, cars, lorries, we can very, very quickly blow their mind. Okay, and that environment for them can just become stressful. And that's where I feel a lot of reactivity also comes in, because it's the environment. They're reacting in that environment rather than being reactive. I've worked with quite a lot of dogs where they are reactive. They come to me for reactivity. I can quickly see that actually, once we get them in an environment that they feel safe and secure in, they're absolutely fine with dogs that are friendly and polite. So we very quickly can work with those dogs and quickly get them into an environment they're comfortable with. I can work with them with other dogs so they become more comfortable with other dogs, and then the owner understands the environments they can't cope in, and we reduce that completely. So we stop road walking for a while and then we gradually bring it back in. So these are all things that we've just got to really consider. I always see behaviour as information. Hi Zena. Same with jumping up as well. So if a puppy is jumping up, so if someone says to me, my puppy jumps up all the time, how do I train them not to? I want to investigate why they jump up. So some puppies do jump up, the arousal, they just want to get near our faces. Some puppies jump up because we quickly teach them paw. Some puppies jump up because it's reinforced loads to have them on 2 paws. Sometimes I feel a lot of puppies jump up because they are maybe in pain or the floor's very slippery. So I find a correlation between puppies that jump up and slippery floors, so wooden floors, tiled floors, those sort of things. So if you're working with a puppy that's jumpy, see what sort of flooring they've got as well, because the adrenaline of what's happening for them to get near us and stuff like that, they can't comfortably say hello without jumping up. So see that as information as well. If I'm out and about and a puppy starts jumping up at me, potentially they're anxious. Something has worried them, and we don't always know what it is. And this is where I think we really need to take attention to scent as well. Because some people will say to me, I'm walking my puppy along and they're fine and there's nothing, and then they lose it. So I'm like, okay, it could have been that they scented something that scared them, scented another dog, or it could have been that they heard something in the distance that we didn't hear, or they've just got tired. So again, jumping up is information. Why are they jumping up? In what situations? And then if it's in all situations, or if it's not necessarily, it's whenever you're in the home and stuff, then you know that you can do it as a training issue, and it's much more about making sure all 4 paws are on the floor. And you can do that alongside as well. And I will always, so if customers ask me like loose lead and jumping up and biting, I will always give them the training for it, but I will also always make sure they understand the theory behind it as well, because that is the important part of it. Okay, otherwise you can get really frustrated with a dog like these guys that I'm working with. They've been doing loose lead walking for ages and they feel it's them, and it's not. It's to do with their dog, and we need to try and establish what's going on with him. You know, it could be that he is in pain. There's lots of stuff we need to start to look into, and behaviour really is information for us. It's looking at what they do, when they do it, and potentially why they do it. And this leads quite good into socialising and how it can go wrong. So I'll just explain how I tend to socialise puppies. Now, we don't socialise in our training classes purely because I find that, one, when the puppies first arrive, it's quite high arousal. So they're quite high, quite hyper, and it's quite exciting and stuff like that. So if they were to play at that point, potentially it's too arousing for them. Then as the training class gets on, maybe in the middle would be a kind of a good time to socialise, but at the end they're too tired. So I wouldn't socialise puppies at the end either, because they're going to be overtired. So my preference, if I'm honest, so to me, puppy classes is socialising. They are around other dogs and people and nothing bad is happening. Now, I explain this to all my clients and they are all satisfied with that explanation. So when people say to me, I want to socialise my puppy, they'll quite happily, when I explain to them that coming to a training class is socialising, and actually just being around dogs and other people is really socialising because nothing bad is happening, and they get that and they understand that. Then socialising I tend to do on a one-on-one basis. So my dog, is really, we're really lucky with our Ruby. She's brilliant socializer. Her personality and temperament has a lot to do with it. Okay, so we have trained her as well, but what you can't do is assume that you can train any dog to be a good social dog. Okay, we really micromanaged her socializing for the first year of her life. Sorry. We only socialised her with dogs we knew that were friendly, and we knew. Okay, so we were really lucky to have access to dogs like that. So I know not everyone is in the same circumstances. So for her, she only ever had positive experiences with other dogs. So with my Ruby, what I can do is she will, if I'm working with, say, a puppy that's slightly underconfident, what I'll do is she will focus on me, and I will just reinforce her looking at me while puppy gets to come in, sniff, and then back away, and then come back in and back away. And they soon realise, actually, with Ruby, that she's not going to do anything, she's not going to shoot round and try and sniff them or anything like that. And it really helps them. They very quickly build their confidence up with her. Ruby also doesn't resource guard food, okay? She loves her food. She's a real piggy, but I wouldn't be able to do it with a dog that potentially resource guard. It wouldn't be fair on that dog because it would be too stressful having a puppy around food, okay? If the puppy is really over the top, really over exuberant, really over top, so kind of very highly aroused, then what I do is I do it through a barrier, and my Rubes she will decide herself how quickly she will go and say hello to that other puppy. There are times when I've worked with a puppy where for the first 2 times we've met, Ruby won't go and say, she'll stand about a metre back. So she kind of lets me know. She says, no, that pup's arousal's too high. I'm not ready to go there. So we just do lots of stuff with getting focused with the puppy and Ruby. And so again, it's a positive experience. But what I'm not going to do is at that point let Ruby go in there with the puppy and the puppy jump all over Ruby, because we don't want that behaviour reinforced. And this is where, again, we have to be really careful. What I am seeing lots of is puppies that are assumed to be really confident, really happy, actually are very insecure. So, or not even, very insecure, but quite insecure. So a lot of poodle mixes and spaniels. So a lot of the time people will say to me, oh, they love people or they love other dogs. And I'm like, okay, just explain to me what they do. So they run over to every person, and they run over to the other dogs, and they're jumping all over the dogs, and they kind of can't control their behaviour. They're like super excited. Now, to me, what's happening potentially is that they're actually feeling a little bit stressed, a little bit insecure. So their arousal's increasing, and therefore they've got a lot of adrenaline, and they actually can't kind of control that behaviour. So sometimes the actual over-the-top behaviour actually comes from a place of insecurity. Now, we can make the mistake, and the owners can make the mistake, by assuming that they love people and dogs, and we take them to places where there's lots of other dogs or lots of people. And actually, it's quite a scary experience for them, because they're kind of like saying, hello, I need to see that dog, otherwise I don't know what's going to happen. But the way to tell it often is actually what the puppy does when the other dog gets to them. Okay, so if you have a puppy like that, or you're working with a puppy like that, and when another dog, they run up to another dog, actually, when they get there, what do? Do they go kind of stiff and go, oh my God, I don't actually know what to do? Do they roll on their back? Because again, that's quite they're making themselves quite vulnerable. Or are they all over them? They can't kind of control that behaviour. And all of that is information, again, that we don't really want to socialise like that. So I'm looking for, when I'm socialising, you've often, in the first couple, when I'm socialising with really young puppies, we've only got about 5 minutes of what I call kind of, I wish I knew this when Rocket was a puppy. Yeah, it's really common, and it's something that I've just seen lots more of in the last few years. But I'm looking for, so if I'm working, I've got a really good retrievers, and what I use as an example. I find with golden retrievers, I've probably got about 5 minutes of what I call perfect kind of socializing, perfect behavior, where they're interested in the other dog, and the dog Ruby will sniff them, and it's all quite nice, and they might do a play bell, and they break off, and then Rubes might encourage them to follow her, and then after about 5 minutes they start to get a bit lively, and they might start just being a bit over the top, and at that point I stop it. Now, it might sound like I'm being a real grump, and I'm not in any way, shape or form, but I don't want to reinforce that type of behaviour. I only want to reinforce when it's nice and polite and stuff. So we just separate them, we calm it down, do a bit of food, and then if they can go back again. But for some dogs, especially youngsters, 5-10 minutes is boom, all they can cope with. And actually, we can cause issues by carrying on, and cause bigger issues in the future. So I've just got a question. How would you socialise a puppy in a place where people are generally scared of dogs and children run screaming at the sight of them and other owners aren't really clued up? Okay, if I'm honest, I would try not to socialise in a place where people are generally scared of dogs and children run screaming. I would tend to go to places where, so if I'm socialising a puppy, I really only want them to meet 1, maybe 2 dogs at a time. If I'm socialising them with people, potentially again 1, maybe 2. Some dogs are kind of what you, these are quite few and far between now, but kind of like what I call bomb-proof when it comes to maybe people or other dogs, and then so they're quite habituated towards people, so it's not stressful for them as such, you know. But where there's other dogs, and yeah, I would tend to avoid those sort of places. If it's the only place to go, I would be kind of staying back and doing more of an observing and letting my puppy observe what's going on, rather than being in the middle of all of that. And this is again where you've got to think where to socialise. So if you're socialising in a park where there is potentially a dog in front of them, behind them, this way, that way, and there's nothing for them to do. So this is why a lot of puppies are much more confident in the forest, in the wooded area, because they can distract themselves. So if there's something over there they're a little bit worried about, what they can do is they can go and sniff a bush, or they can pick up a stick, or they can go and investigate this different smell, and lots of different things. Whereas in a park, there's often nothing they can do, and it can very quickly get quite overwhelming for them and stress. And you can think they're having a great time because they're getting livelier and livelier, but actually it can actually have detrimental effects going forward. I see it a lot, like I said, in poodle mixes. So I work with quite a lot of cockapoos. I work with a lot of cockapoos. By the time they're like 7 or 8, we're working with them from reactivity, and we go through the whole thing of what were they like as a puppy, yet they loved other people and they loved dogs, and then all of a sudden they didn't. And then we work through it, and we actually work out that, okay, what actually happened is they go outside, and as soon as they start to go outside, they start to feel a little bit insecure. So they start to get a little bit aroused, a little stressed. They've got lots of adrenaline, cortisol, so they're getting a little bit more and more. And actually, then they seem like they're really having a good time, but actually it's from a place of anxiety. And then this dog didn't stop when they turned their head, or this dog wouldn't listen when they mirrored their behaviour, or they did tongue flicks and it wasn't listened to, or they tried to appease and that wasn't listened to. So in the end, by 7 or 8 months, they're having to shout to stop that thing from happening. So just need to be really aware. It seems to start as we come out of our building. It depends how big your puppy is. If you can, I would carry them. If you can't, then just take it as slowly as possible and just reassure lots and stuff like that, and just try and go somewhere social that's quieter. Or if you're in that kind of, there's a lot going on, then look for places where you can go, where it's quiet, so they can have that kind of, they can get to explore an environment that's outside of where they live, but without having to worry about all these different distractions. For a puppy, sometimes just coming out to the end of the garden is too much. So, you know, you've opened the door, a lorry's gone past, oh God, that's thingy, then they see the postman, and then another person's gone past, and actually by the time you get to the gate, they've done, and that's enough for that time. And that's when, if they start to jump up and mouth and things like that, that's when that's just too much for them at that point, and you're better off going in and going quiet again, and then just doing it gently, if that makes sense. Yeah, my dog was bomb-proof. Dogs were people. He definitely felt they were none of his business. Wonderful. Yeah, yeah, trying to train the neighbours is the hard bit. With the neighbours and stuff like that, what I would do is maybe go and speak to them without the puppy and just say, look, you know, what can we do to one at a time maybe? And this is always, again, this is another social thing. If you're socialising with people, I always say, yes, you can say hello. So if I'm working with a puppy and I'm, you know, I go through a little town or whatever, I will go, okay, every fifth person, maybe I'll let them kind of say hello to, but it's always on the puppy's terms. So if someone says, can I say hello to your puppy? I'll say, yeah, just stay there. And I just need to see if they want to today. And then I put puppy down, and it's entirely up to puppy whether or not they go to that person. I don't let people come to the puppy. It has to be that the puppy has chosen to go. I want the puppy to know that they've got a choice. And then, so I'm not a big fan of holding puppy in the arms and then people surrounding them and stuff like that. And it's okay if you know what you're doing and you can see the flicks and you can see the yawning, because then you can stop it. But most people are not experienced enough to know that. And actually what the puppy can be saying is, no, I don't want to, not today. Please don't, no, please don't touch me. And all this, and actually the people still keep coming and everyone touches the head, and actually in the end what can happen is that's when at 5-6 months they go no, and they won't let someone in the house, or it could be that they tolerate it from their owner but they don't tolerate it from other people. I have worked with dogs where the children can do anything to the dog, but the dog then hates other children because it tolerates it from the owner's children, but actually when they're out and about they won't tolerate it from anyone else. So I'm just seeing some of the thingy. Yeah, trying to train the neighbours, it's hard. But go and speak to them without puppy as well, because sometimes having puppy with you can make it difficult. So, and if there's kids and things like that, you can say, oh, they like to do this. How about you throw the piece of food over there? I'm not a fan, again, of strangers feeding puppies. I think you have to be really careful. I work with a lot of foreign dogs where actually they will still take food even if they're terrified, and it doesn't help them get over that phobia of people. So you're much better off, you either feed and pair the people with it, or if they want to feed, that they warn the puppy that they're going to and they chuck it. Don't ever let children pick up a puppy that's not theirs. Hello, such a good input. Yeah, Hannah, I see it loads. Honestly, I see it in a lot of dogs, and it's amazing. I mean, I love working with puppies and their owners. The amount of owners we work with, that they're like, I really had no idea. I'm working with one at the moment. It's a welfare, so we're meeting on a, we're meeting on a one-to-one basis, but we're like 5 meters apart and they're in the distance, and I'm just explaining to them about the dog because they're having an absolute nightmare and it could be rehomed if we don't work with them. They had no idea how nervous their dog actually is. And it's just, and now they're seeing her from a different point of view. They're completely understanding the behaviour, and the relationship is really helping and improving because they're seeing a very different dog to the one that they thought was just a nightmare. I have a 5-month-old pup that is comfortable in the house and getting there in the garden. When she goes into the field, which is next to her house, she'll just do a business and pulls to go home. Tries to be... yeah, so what's probably happening, Jeanette, is she's probably getting the scent of other dogs that's probably worrying her. So what I would probably do is maybe look to work with a professional to build up her confidence with other dogs. And that's what I tend to do with lots of puppies. I build up their confidence. If I'm working with an underconfident dog, I use my Ruby. We meet 2 or 3 times and they build their confidence up with Ruby. And then I can often, with Ruby, introduce another dog because they've got their safety. A little dog I'm working with, that I'm going to start working with in a few weeks. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use Ruby to do that. So yeah, Zeno, I would... Yeah, tries to bite a lead off. Yeah, so it just means that something in that environment is just as stressful. What you might want to do is take her in the car and go to like another type of rural environment so she's having other experiences out and about. Often I do find places that, so if you go to local fields, local parks and stuff, a lot of dogs can be quite territorial. So it could be that they lay scent that is a little bit, we don't know. I don't know the research. I was at a conference where the person talked about that there is dogs do lay different scent, so they could potentially lay an aggressive scent. And I do see this because my dog will smell another dog's wee, and only at times will he mark over it. At other times he's not bothered. So they do lay different scents. We just don't speak that language yet. Alana, fantastic. Thank you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, she doesn't accept treats outside. Okay. Yeah, so I think it's probably just a bit much for her, and that's exactly what you're finding. If they won't take food outside, it's often that it's just overwhelming. So what you can do is look at the food you're trying to give. So if, for example, if I'm working with a puppy that's slightly anxious, I'm going to use something potentially like squeezy cheese if it's not going to upset their stomach, because it's a lot easier for them to so if you imagine when we're feeling slightly stressed and scared and stuff, our body gets ready to fight or flight. So we're not producing saliva to be able to eat and stuff like that. So it's much easier for a dog to be able to lick. And that's the same with reactive dog. In Reactive Dog UK, we talk about this a lot, but look at the treats you're using as well, because if we're going to give them something like a biscuit, it's like giving us a cracker with no drink. You know, you can't actually physically have it. So sometimes just having something to lick. But I would see it could be that if she finds that field really scary, what you might want to do is just for a week or so, go somewhere else and then just try it again. So it's not constant daily, if that makes sense. It'd be fascinating to know more about. Is that the scent? Yeah, the urine, Steffi. I can't remember who said it, and I'll try and find out. But it was just it just made so much sense to me, because there's so many times when you can be walking along and there doesn't seem to be any trigger whatsoever, but the dog can just completely lose it. And I genuinely feel that it is the scent of other dogs, animals, we don't know. And also as well, just another thing to bear in mind at the moment, us humans are stressed. Okay, a lot of humans at the moment are we're reactive, kind of fight or flight, you know, to do with the information coming into the brain. In normal circumstances, it goes through to the prefrontal cortex, where we think before we react. But actually what's happening at the moment is it's not going via that, it's going into the thalamus, the amygdala. People are reacting. Therefore, what's happening is we're laying a lot of cortisol. So for our dogs, the world is quite a stressful place at the moment, I personally believe. There's a lot of people laying a lot of cortisol. Okay, lupine dog, yeah. And it's really, I'm seeing a lot of dogs actually really struggling in the cars nowadays as well. And that can make it really difficult. So sometimes what you might want to do is find somewhere that's quite quick to get to in the car. Or even, so Jeanette Finley did a great talk in here on ACE work. ACE-free work is brilliant. So what you could do is take some items to a field with you and just build up her confidence. You could do it in the home first of all, so she understands what the kind of setup is, and then take that with you and just build up her confidence that way. How would you go about 7-month-old dog with a big train station? Biggest problem with finding is the pigeons. Yeah, so I would probably suggest that the pigeons are just a distraction, because she's actually not coping with that environment. So what I would do is train a behaviour, something that I tend to train 1, 2, treat, where I simply walk along and go 1, 2, treat, 1, 2, treat, and I treat on the treat. But I would do that loads and loads and loads and loads at home. And then I would start to do it at a distance from the train station. And then until she started to get to the point where she couldn't cope. And then go home, give her a couple of days off and restart again. That would be my thing. Often I find when we can assume that it's the pigeons or the squirrels or... Sorry, just look at the time. I need to finish the text. Yeah, so we can assume it's the animal that's causing the behaviour. But actually, I think sometimes it's the fact that they're feeling a bit stressed. They're looking for anything to distract them. It might even be worth having a toy or something that they can carry. Yeah, Tasha, sometimes my bitch doesn't want to go a certain way, but the next day she will. Yeah, I honestly think there's so much more into scent than what we realise. I genuinely do. And I'd really love someone to do much more research on that, because I really think that's a big thing. Anyway, I better finish. Thank you very much for all your engagement. I hope you enjoyed the talk. I will put the links to Reactive Dog in the back to the post, I'll also put a link to my website, and if anyone wants to message me privately, that's no problem. I'll quite happily go through anything. I love to chat, so I will talk to anyone. All right, take care. Thanks. Bye.